Hey, everybody. Welcome to Yellow Spandex. This is Rod. We have Vince here.
Yeah, what's up?
And Josh, of course.
Hey.
And this week, special guest, Ron Wasserman.
Hey there, how you guys doing?
It's been a while. Vince and I met Ron a couple of years ago, actually in about a week, 2 years ago, for that Power Rangers video that all of you have seen by now, because by the time this podcast comes out, that video that we've been promising for 2 years will finally be posted.
Yay.
They're very slow.
Yeah, we are, dude. I mean, first it was just like, well, we don't want to put it too close together, and then like a bunch of like good things happened and we just got busy. It's a whole thing. But yeah, Ron wrote the Power Rangers theme song, Go Go Power Rangers, and also we're aware that he wrote the X-Men theme song. There's a video about it on our channel, but today we're here to talk about Power Rangers and other related projects. So yeah, I guess Ron, how you been doing in quarantine? We're all in the LA area.
That's true.
I've spent 30 years of my life working alone, so this isn't a huge stretch. And my son, you really 8 or 10 hours a day is always alone. So it hits me at night because I started, I have friends and go out and get a drink 3-4 times a week. So initially that was difficult, but
Right.
now I've just eased into it. My 16-year-old son is with me. He's doing school online, and he's doing great with it. So actually, we're wonderful.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's great.
And he's a musician as well, right? He plays cello?
Cello
Very
player.
cool.
Yeah. And it's great.
My last serious relationship, which was a long time ago, she had a thing for cello players, so I always had one eye open. It was like, I want the cellist getter.
For cello player?
Yeah, it is a sexy thing. That's why I keep telling him to keep playing, because when the time comes, he's going to get all the smart chicks.
Oh,
Right?
true that.
Whip that cello out and be like, here's a sonata.
Classy.
Low end rumble.
You're like, do some yo-yo ma, baby. Yo-yo ma. Oh, I'll be your mommy, baby.
Very cool. Well, I think a lot of you saw in the Power Rangers video on RKVC's channel, me and Vince's channel,
Yeah.
kind of like an overview of how the gig came up for Ron. But you know what? We have a question here from a fan that might be a good place to start.
Nice.
You pull it up. Let's see here. Wait
a minute, I'll guess the answer ahead before you ask.
Okay.
The answer is 9 inches, and the question is, on my Euphonics mixing console, how long were the faders?
That's awesome.
The faders.
Well, now we're done.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. This is from Instagram user in Pictures
right.
Moving. When you wrote the song, did you have any idea it would be a world recognized theme song?
Not a clue in the world. I just sat down. I was working on something else that night, or wanted to, and they came in and said, we need a theme for the show. Here's the basics. Maybe use the word go, because Saban has a lot of luck with the word go, from Go Gadget Go and whatnot, where he initially broke into the business. And my only question is, I called the president of music because it was such a brief meeting between the two of us. And I said, morphine or morphin? How do you want me to say it? And because originally I was thinking mighty morphine power. Right. Is it morphine? So
yeah.
I wanted to get it done. So from write something to the finished mix was 2.5 hours.
That's crazy.
And I had no idea. Literally, I finished it like many other things and went about my night. I didn't. It actually was years before I realized how big the thing got.
Yeah, that's wild,
man.
We've had some people we look up to as pop songwriters that said similar things when they were starting. They just were hustling so much. They were doing 5 or 6 songwriting sessions a day for 2 years, and then didn't realize until 6 months later that a song had gone number one. Mm-hmm. And they're, the label's calling them congratulations, 6 months ago you had number one. It's like, what?
And you're like, for what?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's true.
And then they've written so many songs, they don't even remember the one that went number one. They're like, when did we write that?
Yeah.
Yeah, who sang that? Oh.
Gotta
Oh, I
remember
like that
session.
song. I forgot I wrote it.
But that's another cool point that you were the original vocalist and all the instruments on the song.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was just, I played everything. All the guitar was done. I had been using it on other little things for myself. So fake guitar done on a keyboard. And that was my guide vocal. So when they called the next day and they said, Fox loves it, I said, well, who should we get to sing it? I know some people. And they said, no, Fox loves it. You're the singer.
Nice.
And I went,
Dude,
great. It did. And then I never thought there'd be any more. I'm like, wonderful. It's done. Move on to whatever I'm doing the next night.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turned into all those songs. And I had to learn how to scream with good pitch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because this was
I
way
would
before
gargle,
autotune.
Auto-tune or Melodyne back then. Jeez.
no, and I was working on 2-inch tape. So you had to rewind everything and you had to wait for the two machines to sync up to everything. It was a real, well, I always had good pitch, but I just had to learn how to control it. And I found that gargling ice cold Diet Pepsi would tighten my chords and I could find that sound. But it was a ton of singing
Man,
and it was a lot of work, but it was fun.
I can't believe 2 hours, Ron. That's amazing, especially on the
Yeah.
technology back then.
Oh no, 2.5, not 2. 2 would be ridiculous.
That last
Two
half
would be
hour. The
ridiculous.
first 2 hours was drinking, and then the last half hour was
The actual work.
I've been
Yeah.
in sessions like that.
Well, there's with all the technology we have now, it still takes people, even myself, like hours to get tracks done sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh, me too. It takes 15 minutes to find the right reverb plugin because I've got 75 reverbs.
Oh yeah. It's
So-
that choice paralysis or whatever.
That plug-in thing.
Yeah, it's exactly. I have too much. I have on my composing computer 12 terabyte of samples and libraries alone. So if I need a flute, I've got to go through. Nah, that's not the flute. Oh no, that flute's close. Now this one works. Now that sucks. And on and on and on. It's really bad. It's really bad.
I love
Truly.
I love hearing that story though of like how quickly all that happened. Mainly because well, when we first met, I was floored because you were just so cool, and also like that. It's weird because like
Wait a minute. I gotta tell my kid. They think I'm cool.
and that
He doesn't care.
and that you were the hero that I wasn't aware of as a child, right? Like, because like Josh said, like my brother and I, when we were kids, anytime one of those theme songs came on, we were just running around, like
Same
pretending to be
here.
Power Rangers and stuff. And then, when I got older, obviously like in college and stuff, like, oh, someone wrote these songs. They just didn't fall out of like Power Ranger heaven,
Right.
Yeah, I used to
And-
have one of those plastic kids cassette machines, and like you could, it was really bad. It had the microphone on the side, and I'd go put it up to the TV, and I'd record it like every Sunday or every Saturday morning, and then like after 10 Saturday mornings in a row, I'd just play it. And it's like 10 minutes long or whatever, and my mom would be
That's
like,
great.
"What the heck, man? That keeps going. Turn it off."
Yeah, and then the fast forward, like Vince and I, we're in LA trying to like make it in music, and Ron, you had some very encouraging words for us last time we met, and it meant a lot because I was like, this is somebody who did it, somebody I respected.
Yeah.
Did I tell you to go into another profession?
I mean, I think I kind of already knew that. But,
Right.
but you're just kind of like, man, like just be good, work hard, and don't be an asshole.
Yeah, that's it.
And like we kept that, and obviously this isn't about us, but we had really good news later, and you were one of the first people I hit up when we got this big gig, with YouTube and stuff.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
And like I was like, oh, it's happening, but when you're talking about the story of like how quickly the song happened and they liked your vocal and stuff, it reminds me that like me and Vince we're on the right path because we did this theme song for the Phillies, Philadelphia Phillies mascots, like before we moved here, and very similar situation. Like we were working through a friend's marketing agency, and it was so secret because I guess the sports world is so like cutthroat that they wouldn't allow us to email or text about it. So our liaison would go to this meeting, get the briefing about what the character looked like, a turtle and an otter and stuff, and then come back to us and show us on a phone like these ideas, and then we would write something and then physically deliver it to him, and he would physically take it to the Phillies, And
Wow.
we did one round of notes because there was like these timing issues, and then we got a second round of notes. We're like, cool, we just did that, and we were working on like 4 other projects, and then one night it was like 1 or 2 in the morning. me and Vince were working at my place on a new song, and then the marketing guy called us. He was like, "Oh, they loved it. It went over so well." I'm like, "Who loved it, and where did it go over well?" And we found out it was opening day for the Phillies, and
They just
Wow.
used our vocals.
and what we thought was like one of the rough versions.
Yeah.
You know, because we thought at that time they were going to get like a local like American Idol runner up or somebody, you know, to sing it.
Sure.
And then we just became so like you told us that story like a couple of years ago about Power Rangers. I'm like, okay, we're gonna do all right. Like, I mean, everything. You
Yeah.
even mentioned that at that time. You're like, yeah, I was living off my credit cards. I'm like, that's what we were doing. Like,
This sounds so familiar.
so if you're writing out there, the struggle is real, but it's possible, you know, to make it.
Yeah, believe me, I'm tenacious. I've been playing since I was 3. I was thrown out of every music class I ever had. Every teacher asked me to leave. But the thing is, it's just ingrained in my DNA. And I was just always polite and just kept moving forward. And that's it. With really no goal. I mean, I didn't sit around thinking, wow, I want a big house and I want a Ferrari and I want this. And it's not about that. It was just, I have to make it, and that's it. And that's how you have to be. And you have to be really willing to make coffee for people who are your superiors and smile. Thinking, your coffee sucks. I'll learn to make it better for you.
Yeah, and that was something that you kind of concluded on in the video we did a couple of years ago, was that like even though you weren't given credit at the time, that they were physically trying to hide you from like the streets and stuff, that you didn't really begrudge the process because it was like you got to get paid.
It
to
was
like
the experience
to learn your trade.
Yeah,
and do
it
all
was
that.
paid for going to college. And a lot of people through the years, I've had magazines contact me and try to trash Saban. And I said, do you feel betrayed? Do you feel ripped off that he collected all the royalties? I'm like, no. I mean, every composer goes through this.
Yeah.
And it's just, and even if you're not hired as a composer, if you're a songwriter, this is what everybody goes through. It's part of the process. And it's not like I didn't know the deal. I never went, wait a minute, I thought I owned it. I knew it out of the gate. And I keep my word. And you guys keep your word. And that's another thing that's very important because it's such a small business.
Well, that's actually really good to hear, because I mean, we hear about stuff, with like Taylor Swift stuff or whatever nowadays. We're like, oh no, they stole my masters. It's like you signed that contract. You understood what you were getting into. So
yeah, that was really interesting. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just, I don't know. I only have $65 million. What am I going to do? Oh.
I remember seeing Kelly Clarkson comment about that Taylor Swift situation. And she had kind of made a good point. She was like, well, not only was she young, Kelly was like, well, I don't care who has my masters because I don't write most of my songs. It's like, but Taylor's a co-writer on a lot of her songs. So she's like, so for her, it was probably felt more personal, even though she signed the contract and everything. Mm-hmm. But even for us, most people who know RKVC, if you haven't seen us before, like, we'll link a video to like the latest good news for us. But we also did some like work for hire, like sync music and stuff. And so we got paid all at once. And now wherever it's used, it could be used in like a car commercial, and we won't make any extra money off of it.
Yeah,
but
made
same
a deposit.
Thing.
That's
same
how
thing.
I looked at it.
Yeah, same thing though. It was like it's probably more money than we would make, normally on our stuff at this level. But most importantly, it was an opportunity for us to learn. Kind of like with you, like just the process of like doing these things, because we didn't have a clue before.
Each new experience is adding to our history of now, like being where we're at now.
Yeah, and you said, you got to get paid to go to college. Like me and Josh had to pay like 6 figures to go to college.
Still paying to go to college.
Well, you actually went, so there you go.
Yeah, I kind of needed it for me though, because I came out of like a little Indiana town that had like 3,000 people in it.
Sure.
And there was no music program. Well, there's no music program except for like the church choir. And so, like, when I was at college, I was just soaking everything in. It's like I didn't know how to turn Pro Tools on and stuff. So I know it wasn't a great experience for everybody, but for me, it was like the perfect thing I needed. I'm like, tell me how to turn it on. They can work from there.
Of course. You have to do what you do for your area. I was in LA, so my life was there's a million clubs and a million bands. I just figured I'll try and find a great band and see if something happens. And, it was just part of doing it. And I had the 1966 Chevy van with oh my God, what a piece of crap. And so I schlepped everybody's gear, and we rehearsed in when I was in bands, we would rehearse in dance studios because they only charged us $40 a month.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, they're giant echo chambers, those hardwood floors and mirrors. Could you do anything worse? So I was stuffing anything I could find in my ears before all these earplugs came
Sound
out.
like Led Zeppelin?
No, we did not sound like Led Zeppelin.
Actually, that's a question that I had, because in the main video that we had previously done, you had mentioned you'd spent a lot of time in bands in the 80s, and even one of your last or biggest stints was with E.G. Daily.
Right.
And then, shortly after that is when all the break happened with Saban and stuff and the producers you met. But like before then, I was curious of like this whole 80s band experience, like, because people who hear Go-Go Power Rangers, there's a clear like 80s rock metal influence.
Definitely.
I'm just kind of curious of like your band experiences, in the 80s.
I did new wave bands. I was in the first band I was in. Oh my gosh, I was in bands in my teens, but the first one that went out and performed, I don't even know what we were. We were like Chicago meets something. I mean, it was like a horn section, and it was fun, but it was like a stoner. I wasn't a stoner, but it was like a stoner band. Everybody else was high all the time.
It's like
it was just kind
jamming?
of like the Grateful Dead meets Chicago.
Whoa,
That sounds
that
amazing.
sounds
Weird.
freaking cool.
No, it actually kind of was, but it wasn't. There was a lot of battle
Chaos.
of the powers, and every band I've been in, I'm sorry, but I've got to take it over, and I even did that with E.G. But and then other bands were like new wave. I mean, I had spiked hair and wore wacky striped suits and had earrings and. Did that fucking 80s dance as I was standing there with 3 keyboards on a custom built stand that I made out of tubes. And I did bass and keyboards like Ray Manzarek, and it was fun, and we were very close to getting signed. I'm just glad it never happened.
It was shiny, but it was a bullet I dodged.
Did they have keytars back then?
We had an agreement that I would never, ever do that. Plus, I'm not a front person, so I liked being in the back.
Nice.
Always in the back, in the shadows. I just focus on my work and play my parts.
I love it with like 3 pianos.
There was
no rock bands, oddly
interesting.
enough. None, but it was always in me, and I would always, in my spare time, just work on guitar sounds and try to... I could never actually play guitar, but I just loved heavy metal. So I'd have my new wave band thing where we're dancing around and everybody's doing that fucking valley dance.
Right.
And then I'd get in the car and see if I could find some Black Sabbath or something to listen to.
Nice.
Yes.
That's so funny. Yeah, so I guess I had just assumed that like the rock influence, that it had been part of the band experience, but new wave, man, that's awesome.
Did they ever put
new wave.
Topside.
Did they ever put any of that stuff on Guitar Hero or anything? Or like the Power Rangers stuff?
Yeah, I think it was, yeah. And I wrote some other song for it too. I think it was Guitar Hero. It's been like 10 years. But they put that stuff in, and then there was a hack so people could get the original melodies. So I remember my kid would do it, and then people were sending me videos, and I thought that was pretty cool. But I mean, over the years, I've realized what an impact it had, and how fucking lucky am I that with a couple hours of work, it was something that people loved, and on the other themes as well. I mean, what a blessing.
Like I'll find
I
that
have no ego about it. It just is. Go ahead. Right. Sorry.
I was gonna say, like, for most cartoons or TV shows for kids, especially, like, if that theme song is just freaking amazing, like that show is just gonna do well. Like most of the stuff that I liked, even like last year, or a few years ago with the Avengers theme song that they had,
right?
It was just, it rocked you when you were listening to it.
It's important. It's really important, and it's good. I've heard themes through the years that don't play down to kids that are watching this. And that's what I did. I wrote for adults. I wrote for me.
Yeah.
Well, that was the whole.
That's what I did.
thing.
And a majority of those songs are all about, what I was going through in life at that time.
Mm-hmm.
All the songs for the Power Rangers series.
That whole album.
Oh yeah.
That you got to re-record all of those songs.
Yeah, and
I'm so glad. The only reason I did it is to prove that I could still do it, and also to put something out there without all that silly dialogue. Because originally that album that came out had no dialogue on it.
Oh.
But the Clinton administration was coming down on us about the violence in the music, so I was instructed to put dialogue all over it. And also any future writing had to be major chords instead of minor. And I couldn't use words like fight or anything that incited violence. It was fine. It seemed odd to me to be happening. I guess the last time that happened was in the 1600s with the church dictating what composers wrote.
Oh yeah.
And I just thought it was kind of funny, but whatever, politics. They're crazy.
Actually, all is kind of like a good segue to the next fan question. On Twitter, Hanson Long asked, how did you pack so much tude, not attitude, tude, into one tune? Seriously, one of the greatest 90s TV themes ever, and that says a lot.
How did you pack so much attitude into the song? Is that what the question?
Tude into the song.
Yes. Well, all those things, I wasn't walking around breaking stuff, but I had a lot of angst because I've had a tough childhood and my 20s just really sucked. They were just hard. Every time it looked like something was going to happen, it just fell apart. So by the time I was writing that thing and the songs for it, the rock stuff, that was just where I was at in my life at that time. And so it was easy for me to just scream. The singing is actually quite quiet. It's just finding that place in my throat to do it. But it really came from a deep, somewhat dark place. I'm not that way anymore.
Didn't use that for Hot in Cleveland?
It's still there, but not like it was.
Right.
Wow, that's crazy.
But
That's awesome.
I was angry and young. I should have, if I had the balls to grab the mic and stand in front of a band and go play at clubs, if I didn't have performance anxiety, I would have ended up in some sort of band like Metallica or something.
There's just so much. For me, the attitude is the kind of shout chorus and then the answer with the end of the melody there, dun, 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 and then you have dun, 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 dun. Like that phrase is a complete question and answer for me. So that was what got me hyped, hearing that melody over and over again.
Well, thank you. And when I've listened to it since, I was playing it for someone the other day for a joke. And I said, well, you haven't ever heard me sing. And she's like, no, I haven't. I said, okay, I got to play this for you. And I played it. And about halfway through, I said, you want me to go back to something else? She goes, your choice, which means yes. And we went back to it. But when I listen to it, I feel like I'm listening to somebody else. It's very odd. It's very rare, but it's very odd where I say, hit the button on Apple CarPlay and say, play Ron Wasserman. It's playing songs by Ron Wasserman. It's weird, but it feels like it. I've always considered it a gift, and I channel this stuff, and I've had a lot of times where there's stuff that's been very successful, and I look back at it, and it's just it's like watching somebody else's life.
That's crazy. That is such a crazy perspective.
It's crazy. But it also keeps me in check and always has.
That's the good thing too, is you're able to have these like touch points to look back on and be like, that's where I grew some balls. That's where I grew a backbone. Like it's just these stepping stones of your career have been so astronomical for nerdy guys like us.
Yeah,
it means a lot.
It's encouraging to me too to hear you say that, even for something like Go-Go Power Rangers, that you pulled from like your personal like feelings, at least if not experiences. Because I feel like a lot of us are similar, where it's like, even if I'm going to write it like a jingle or something, like I'm not good at like kind of. There's other songwriters that are like, okay, I'll write an Ariana Grande song, out my butt and just do it. But like, I have to have some sort of like thread of connection to like pour the amount of work that goes, because making music is like it's easy, but it's hard. I don't know. It's those whole things. Like, you're starting with a blank canvas. Yeah. You're like, okay, where do we go from here? Is that then you spend 12 hours looking for reverb.
And then when you're doing commercials or scoring something, they go, we don't know what we want, but here's the list of what we don't want. With everyone, a wall gets around you and gets a little tighter. You're like, okay, you don't want pop, you don't want rock, you don't want rap, you don't want country, you don't want opera, you don't want classical. Basically, there's nothing left. What the hell am I going to do here? And so I just do what I like. And new wave. That's what I should go. I'm going to do Depeche Mode.
Yes.
And so that's what I encounter more and more these days, where very few people are focused, but a majority of them just say, well, here's what I don't like. And in some ways, if you look at the list and you go, oh, they have 3 things that are saying pop here. Okay, I'm going to do pop. This is actually what they like. They just, it's the psychology of figuring out what a producer wants is
and being
wacky.
able to translate.
You have to really read between the lines.
As I'm terrible
mixer
at that.
Sometimes, like as mixing stuff, sometimes people will be like, well, I don't want this or that, and then like, you'll get to it and they almost want the opposite. Like, they almost do want something like that, but they were thinking of something else that just attributed that to something obscure. It's just weird.
They all want to be incredibly original, but they don't want to be original in the least.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, this has gone on like the last 15 years is we've all been, the entire industry has been shoved into a little box where all network TV is basically the same show. You could watch any sitcom. It's the same script. It's just cleansed and sickening.
Reskinned.
Yeah. But not Netflix. At least Netflix is somewhat original.
Yeah, I've been loving all the streaming channels, like original shows, like the Stranger Things. I mean, I guess Stranger Things isn't original, but it's I don't know.
Oh, it's great though.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all the non-original things put together in an original way. It's just assembled better.
Sure.
Like I told friends, I was like, well, Stranger Things, you know what it is? It's like the 80s we are nostalgic about, not what actually was the 80s. Because like if the kids were actually like 80s kids, they'd be like slightly more racist. Yeah. But like but like it's the glam.
Right.
But the version that we see is like, oh yeah, that was the good old days, like
some fantasy 80s.
But speaking of all the different
exactly.
shows,
Well,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say,
no, you're right.
Do you think that like when you were doing this with Power Ranger stuff and other stuff, like, do you think that Netflix might be easier to deal with because they release everything almost all at once, to where they do the whole season and they can work with together to release that as a whole artistic piece? If that's better than probably doing, like, I'm sure with the Power Rangers stuff, you guys were doing show by show by show by show, and they were trying to get in every other show, trying to mess with things and change and tinker things.
Yeah, well, it certainly was harder then. Plus, we were doing 52 a season, so it was a lot of damn work. But luckily, half the footage pre-existed, so I'm sure the editors had a real time. I never met any of the editors. We're all secluded in our rooms. I knew one of the sound effects guys, but he was doing sound effects on X-Men mainly. He did more animation than live action. So, and we're still close friends. But
that's cool.
Yeah, I think it would be easier. The downside that I'm starting to hear, like I wrote the theme up for this Netflix show called 100 Humans.
Oh,
now what Netflix is doing is buyouts.
Okay.
Yeah,
they won't
no
do
royalties.
They won't do it if a production company comes to them and says, we're selling you this idea. But in this case, and I was a bit thrown because I went, oh my gosh, it's 1992 again, and the rights are all gone. And that's what Netflix is trying to head to. And actually, this whole pandemic, there's a lot of people who have deals with ASCAP, BMI, CSAC. They're trying to back out of them now so they can save money. So this pandemic may affect composer royalties from this point on. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Ron, are you
and that's
ASCAP or
horrible.
BMI?
I'm ASCAP.
So are we. Good job. Okay, but I don't know if you got the same thing. I got the letter from ASCAP saying that.
Oh, so did I. I read that and just went, wow.
Yeah, so if for people who don't know, ASCAP and BMI basically like collect songwriter royalties. This is like the stupid too long didn't read answer, but like we all got a letter saying like, well, people aren't paying us because of the pandemic, and so we may not be able to pay you.
Wow.
But we're gonna see. So
I don't think they said we may not. They said we won't.
We're
be.
not. Yeah.
We won't.
It's I kind of get what we're saying. It was kind of confusing to read, but I guess what they're basically saying was like before it was like in a system, and now the system's broken. So it's all up in the air. We're gonna see what happens.
Okay.
But the frequency will probably be less and more sporadic, and the amounts may not reflect what we're actually being used. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting time.
Unless you're John Williams, then you're getting your full check.
Yeah, sure.
And you were already doing fine before.
Yeah.
So our on Instagram, our friend Marvelous She asked, "Did you or your kids watch the show?"
I didn't have a kid at the time that was out. My son was born in 2004, and everything I've ever done, I've missed his age group. So when he was young, I was doing reality television and still stuff with my band Fisher. And then just as he got to the right age to watch that or to get it, then I went back to Nickelodeon. I was doing SpongeBob and the Thundermans, which he was too old for. So he has literally missed my entire career. He knows I've done a lot, but to him, it's really kind of a blessing. So the only thing he'll tell me is not currently, but he'll say, my friends think you're cool because you have long hair and you do music.
Yes.
There you go.
Well, they're right.
That's it. But he has never been in sync with his age group to watch anything I did. And I really do consider that a blessing.
That's great.
So you don't end up like on a TikTok video or something?
Yeah, okay. So he doesn't get it. Plus, when he was very young, he would be watching television and he'd say, you? Because he heard me compose it. And I'd go, yeah, that's me. And then a commercial, I'd go, yeah, that's Mom singing that commercial for Toyota. So to him, it just seemed like, well, everybody does this.
That is so wild. I've gotten used to it.
It's wild.
Here. Like different people have always grown up in LA and they've been in showbiz. But
it's interesting to get used to.
I grew up in Central. Josh also was in Central Indiana. Or more northern, but anyway, we were in Indiana
and Delaware.
And like, I think maybe me and Josh and two other people were the only four people in like 50 years that decided to do music, besides like John Mellencamp from Indiana.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just like, whoa, you're gonna leave the state to study music? It's like, yeah, I mean, isn't that what people do? Like, you just stay in this town forever,
right? I mean, we're not together anymore, but my ex-wife that we did Fisher with in all those years, when she originally came out, she came out with $300 in a suitcase when she was 20 and lived at the YMCA in downtown Los Angeles.
Oh, wow. And downtown.
3-4 years before I met her and we started working together. And the horror stories are she should write a book on it, but that's what you do. And she was living in a little town where the population was about 2,000 people in Middleburn, West Virginia.
Oh, wow, even smaller than my town.
She just packed up and left. Man. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to encourage anybody to become homeless, but anybody that was going to come to LA, like that really is like almost everybody's story that's doing things,
Yeah. Where did you live at the time, Ron?
I was born and raised in Los Angeles, in the San Fernando Valley, just on the other side of the hill from LA.
Gotcha, yeah.
So I was fortunate, and I probably would not have had the I wouldn't have had the balls to leave wherever I was. I was not a brave soul. But then again, perhaps, if anything happened or if I made friends out here, it was just a different world then. Who knows? Maybe I would have. Maybe I would have packed up my Baja Bug and driven out here. God knows it wouldn't have made it from Indiana, that's for sure.
Yeah, right. Those things are a death trap. I love them, though.
Oh, it was good for 20, 30 miles at a time. Then I had to pull over and fix something on it always.
Right. Overheat or the thermostat or something.
Dude, those, all those like rock star stories of like when vehicles breaking down, living credit card to credit card stuff, they're all true.
Yeah, selling your guitar, selling your piano.
Like, even Ron, since we've last hung out, my car started having a little bit of brake trouble, mainly because I just hadn't replaced them in time, And one time
that'll cause it.
Yeah, we were at we just didn't have the money to, and then we were at McDonald's getting some food, and I pulled out of a parking spot, and I heard this clank. So I stopped and I got outside the car and I look at Vince and I'm like, the brake fell out. And he's like, what do you mean it fell out? It's like, and I picked it up and like, the brake fell out.
The brake pad.
It fell out of the car. Like,
was there anything left?
It fell out of the caliper, hit the ground, and the pad fell off of the metal part.
Oh my God.
It was all like completely shredded down.
Yeah,
how thin was it?
Oh, it was almost gone.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything. I think it was scraping against the metal.
Yeah.
And I think the only silver lining from that was that a friend of ours, Granny Potty Mouth, was filming a pilot for some TV show she was doing. And she was like, where am I going to get props for like a broken car? I was like, have I got something for you? So in her pilot that so far hasn't got picked up for anything, she's holding this like broken off brake pad thing with no padding left on it.
That was a fun day.
That's excellent.
The best part of the story, the way we left the McDonald's, and I jumped in the driver's seat. I said, I'm going to drive all the way back just using the e-brake to brake.
Oh, gosh.
Yep.
Because the front brakes were gone. So we had to
Hopefully you don't go
that
down
car.
any hills.
That's what I'm saying, man. It was fun.
Those are the
We're
memories.
still alive.
Yeah.
Man,
And,
I've had my first car caught on fire. It was a 61 Corvair that my mom owned.
Oh.
And it was old. And it caught on fire a week after I got my driver's license.
No.
And then, but I had $350, so I bought a 63 Buick Skylark Special. With motor mounts were broken. It only had brakes on one wheel, and tires were bald. And those aren't even the worst cars I had. It wasn't until the 90s where I finally had something that I could rely on.
A Prius?
No, it was a 92 Honda Accord.
Yes.
And the only problem with it is that the driver's window, it was brand new, and the driver's window got stuck, but only when I was in really terrible parts of LA.
which was a lot.
The parts where you're just trying to be, there's a lot. But it was still better because it ran. But the brakes also got very hot, and it would smell all the time. So, so that was my last Honda.
Man.
It's just that thing,
I've had horror stories, like wheels falling off as I get to the bottom of a freeway off-ramp. I mean, really, it was, I don't know how I kept going.
Yeah, and this is like in the midst of you doing all the things that you were doing at the time, and you probably weren't working in one area of LA either. You're probably bouncing back and forth from, Burbank to North Hollywood, Studio City.
I had temp work. My jobs were in East LA and a few close to, bad parts of LA.
Were you doing temp work while you were doing Saban stuff? No, prior to, in my 20s. I mean, I did everything from fix business machines to literally 2 or 3 weeks of counting magnets. And when I go crazy, I would grab a handful of magnets and throw them on the ceiling because it had a steel ceiling. I'm like, fuck it, I'm not counting this box. It's the only time I've ever abused an employer and went like, I feel bad about that to this day. Like, a couple thousand of your magnets are stuck to the ceiling. I'm sorry.
God.
Yeah, you're kind of a prankster. I remember you saying that, I forget if it was when you were at Saban or just working at that studio with those producers, but like you gotten pissed off at somebody and like raided their room with a fire extinguisher or something.
Oh yeah, I was telling my son about that the other day, and because we got a new fire extinguisher because I don't know where the other ones went. And I went, well, we're in a pandemic. We need a fire extinguisher. Whatever the hell I was thinking. Maybe that'll be the next toilet paper for everyone.
Fire
Should start that. you need to get a fire extinguisher. There'll be a big run on it and empty shelves.
Exactly.
And maybe First Alert will say, "Hey, that was great, thank you."
It's quite a big.
It
help.
was, yeah, it was. I'm sorry, I got off track. What was the question?
But this other question, Marvelous, she had, and you can elaborate as much or as little, because I already know that this is a loaded question, and this might lead into a question Josh had, but she wanted to know kind of like some of your what other jingles that you've done, or just other like music work that we might know about, and maybe some of your favorites.
A lot of stuff for Toyota. In the early, I did about 300 or 400 national spots. So almost every car company, and Dollop a Daisy and Mazda that had like zoom, zoom, zoom.
Oh yeah.
And these are old commercials and
Zoom, zoom, zoom.
tremendous amounts of stuff. And then it's a bit of a blank to me what I did from about 2003 to 2006. A lot of animation shows called Mummies Alive and Horseland, which were on CBS and had big audiences, but nobody knew about it. And then 2010 went into adult sitcoms and did everything that this station TV or network TV land was doing. So I got to work with Betty White and Cedric the Entertainer and Kirstie Alley. I mean, tons and tons of people. And that was a lot of fun. At the same time, charted a lot on Billboard with EDM stuff that I would write, but the DJ would take credit for. It's fine, just publicly, that my wife was singing, Kathy Fisher. So there's a lot of stuff you've heard, but there's no huge stuff. I can't say I wrote Adele's hits.
But you wrote Go-Go Power Rangers, and Adele might cover that.
Yeah, that's
someday.
all that really matters. Dragon Ball Z, if you ever watched that, which I didn't know till 20 years later became a big thing. I did the first 2-3 years of the score on that.
And that was the the score.
So they're
The score, I did not write that theme.
Okay.
Yeah, you had mentioned, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you mentioned before that it was just a thing, and I don't know if it still is, that if you did the theme, you don't do the score. If you do the score, you don't do the theme.
Yeah, that's prevalent at Disney and Nickelodeon.
Is that
when I did this, I don't get it.
Okay, it's just a thing. Like there's no real
it's a
reason
thing.
behind it. There's like a legal thing or something.
I
It's
can't
just like
think
a
of
thing.
one.
Yeah.
It's a thing like every other show I've done where I said, "Hey, this would be good with a rock theme," and they're like, "No, you can't do a rock theme. That never works." I say, "Hey, there's this show from the '90s. It's one of the biggest themes in history, and it's rock." They're like, "Yeah, but we can't do that. It really doesn't work." And that has happened on every time, not every time, every show, but every time I've pushed anything with crunchy guitars. They're like, "Oh no, it's too heavy in it. Oh no, it's too heavy in it. It'll never work." And that
it's always that emotion. There's something about that emotion that's not sitting right with them.
Yeah, it just scares them. But they truly believe that there can never be a theme that's really rock.
That's so interesting.
You could put a little guitar in, but it doesn't work.
That
That'd
makes
be
me
like
wonder if I
saying,
even
"Well,
understand what it is."
well, the Star Wars theme really should be done on a kazoo. I don't know about this orchestra thing. I don't know an orchestra. I don't think an orchestra can work with space shows. No.
Wow.
We need something else. It's always baffled me.
It's like we also some friends of ours, Michael and Patty Silversher, they did like Tailspin and the Gummy Bears theme song stuff. They had very similar things. They were like, they gave us notes, but they couldn't give us information, like anything helpful. And same, with stuff that me and Vince have done. It's like, we just kind of have to shoot in the dark and hope for the best. And then hope, like, it all comes down to whoever your liaison is, how good they are communicating music language without knowing music that well, or at least not working in music professionally. Because we found finally like our unicorn. We redid the theme song for the Super Carlin Brothers. It's a bigger YouTube channel. And their liaison that we were working with was named Jordan, and I think she's into music, but like she's not like a music professional necessarily, but just how she communicated over email, we knew exactly what to do from iteration to iteration. And I was like,
That's
we
great.
always work with you on other shows and things.
Yeah, just like you have language translators, you need music translators too for some of this stuff.
So it's
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
wild.
And that's few and far between.
How'd you get some
Definitely.
of these gigs out there? They're like there's all over the place on like your Wikipedia and everything else. Like, do you have a manager or just
No, I've never had an agent. I've never had a manager. It's all word of mouth. That's again, I did a thing and I don't even know what it's called, but it's a thing Nickelodeon did, which I think they did for all their streaming services a week and a half ago. And it's just a matter of, we've worked with you before. We know you're available anytime, and we know that you can do it right. And so, do you want to do it? And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And that's how every single gig has come. Somebody
Man.
calls and they say, well, we had another guy, but he asked too many questions. Or we have another guy, but he's not fast enough. And, it's really when it comes down to you, what it comes down to is you're just another composer. It doesn't matter what you've done, unless you really are the top 5 guys doing films. You're easier to work with. So
Interesting.
we'll go with the gig. So literally, I've never looked for work ever since that Power Rangers theme. From the day I even left Saban, I've always had work. I always have work.
It's so
It never
encouraging to
ends.
hear because I mean, just me personally, like I'm a bad like salesperson, so
Yeah, me too.
I really I really believe in like the feng shui of like your occupation and stuff. And I know some people,
Right.
we had former friends that really accused us of like leaning on that too much. But I'm like, man, like I would just rather like the gigs that fit us, like kind of come to us and then are a good fit where we're giving value and they're able to like compensate us. We're doing projects we believe in and stuff, instead of like trying to like hunt for work that we may not like.
Yeah, or just money grab kind of stuff. Like, it's got to mean something.
Yeah. And even if it doesn't, if they call you, it ends up you just try and make it your own. I've only had a few things that were just miserable. Every episode I get, I'm like, ugh, I got to get through this crap, and I've got to deal with this person who just is not nice and is condescending, but I'll get through it.
Man.
And those projects usually aren't successful at all. It's the other ones where they're like, I don't know, you're the composer. I love what you did. I have no notes.
Yeah, the
And
trust.
those are the people that let the director direct and the writers write, and they're not trying to get overly involved.
Right, micromanage.
Yeah. Yeah, we
Yeah,
have a similar
micromanage.
Did you ever get involved in any of the like? I know there's a giant like era in the 2000s that I kind of was in on a lot of Disney stuff or Nickelodeon stuff where they had like singing TV shows where there's every kid's singing a song. They're constantly like they got 3 songs a show. Did you ever get do any of that kind of stuff?
No, I was out of that loop. I had my one little brief thing with Disney in 2005, and then the problem afterwards for putting the demos out for Power Rangers Mystic Force. So that was not the end of the relationship with Disney, but it cut that out. And I was busy working on other things. And then when I started this Thunderman series on Nickelodeon, there was 2 or 3 episodes where the kids sang. But my friend who did Hannah Montana and whatnot was just, and guys I know that have worked on Glee, they're like, oh my God, we got to come up with a song every 9 seconds. This is ridiculous.
It was funny, Josh.
And tie it in the score.
Josh was
work.
Josh was part of the Glee thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's hear it, Josh.
Oh no, I did I think I was the first 2 or 3 episodes, and then that studio, because that stuff was so back to back constant apparently that they moved it to like a Chalice Studios next to Paramount. So I mean, because I was working for a place in Burbank called Resonate for a long time, and we did a lot of Disney stuff. We had tons and tons. I think I met almost all the Disney cast of that like era. But yeah.
It's an interesting time. I was just I just wasn't doing it back then. It'd be fun to do something like that. I mean, I loved any times we had musical themes or whatnot on the other sitcoms, but I don't know. The grind might be hard, and I think it'd be like a friend of mine who scored some Disney show. I really don't remember what it's called, but he wrote a thing and they said, we love it. And then they shot to it and everybody's dancing. And then they contacted him and said, you know what? It's too slow. We need something faster. And he said, you already shot to it. They said, well, do something faster. So he delivered something faster and they went, well, now it's not syncing the picture. And he goes, yeah, they were. So I'm kind of glad I avoided that because I really would have hit a point and said, I don't know how you got your job. I just don't know how you got your job. But
I think that happened with a guy that I knew called Joachim Pearson, I think his name was. Mm-hmm. And he did Camp Rock for Disney. So like Demi Lovato and all that stuff. And they just randomly, I think, filmed a scene where they're like, we're going to just sing these songs on acoustic and then they'll just record them later. And like, it's the kid's playing, I don't know how speed or how fast he's going. So he's sitting there having to play and sync it up to the kid playing it and singing it.
Oh, yeah, God, that sounds like a nightmare.
Maybe this is the same story. I've had that before where I've gone frame by frame on a guitar player, somebody with an acoustic guitar and had to ape what they're doing because they're not really playing. They're just fake strumming and singing something and then slightly using the pitch bend wheel to match what they do as they're fluctuating throughout. I mean, they weren't horrible, but, not perfect pitch. And so that's a ton of work, but it's kind of a fun challenge too, to really make it look like somebody's playing.
You're doing like reverse Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like ding, 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 ding. Okay. Hey, Ron, this sounds unrelated, but it'll relate to something. Have you seen Tiger King yet?
No, I've been waiting. My son watched it, but I'm spreading out. It's interesting. What I've done with this isolation is, obviously productions are pushed, so there's not that much work. But I decided to shift from Pro Tools. I've been using Live to score stuff. I love Ableton Live. And Pro Tools is just a pig for composers. So I really decided to buckle down and learn Logic Pro X, which Logic. I'm starting to really love it. Tonight I was writing my first thing on it. I'm like, wow, screw Pro Tools. And for anybody who uses Pro Tools, it's the industry standard for every show that's mixed, every movie, everything in the world. It's incredible for audio. But as a composer, you start loading up instruments called virtual instruments, and it gets confused, it gets lost. It crashes, you have to walk across the street, it's crying on a curb. It doesn't know how to handle this stuff.
Yeah, I love Logic for the same. I think I heard years and years ago, I heard a story about like Ryan Tedder writing songs on Logic in an airplane. I was like, I need to figure out what that is.
I love Logic.
Yeah.
And, wait till you like dive into like all the peripherals because you can do stuff on GarageBand on your phone and an iPad. And then you can pull it into Logic later, right? And stuff. So
it's crazy. So, and it's been good for my brain. So.
Well, the reason I brought up Tiger King
I haven't been watching that much television.
Okay. Well, the reason I brought up Tiger King was because the main character, Joe Exotic, has a country music career. And this is a minor spoiler, but it's everywhere now. He didn't really sing or write the songs. It is kind of a general understanding. And but in the show, in the music videos, I think most musicians are watching it like, yeah, we know that. Because his speaking and singing voice are not even like dissimilar. They're just not even the same person. But also, he's playing guitar in these videos. Like he's doing all the typical country videos. He's standing on top of a pickup truck, strumming an acoustic guitar. They did a bad green screen of a storm behind him. They use like but then the guitar he's playing, he like doesn't move off like a C chord or something through like the entire song. As he's like in the visual and stuff. Yeah. But the whole song has these intricate like lead lines and like the chords change and stuff.
Yeah, just the rhythm itself.
So that's where you need a musician on the set. I had that on sitcoms. Like they can't play, but just tell them what to do.
Yeah.
So I would go, okay, just your fake bass playing, but just every once in a while move your hands so it looks like your left hand's not just dead.
Yeah. It's like all those stock photos of violinists who are holding their bow wrong or something.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've been on the set with that. I'm like, okay, hold it like this. move the fingers. I don't even know what you're doing because I don't play this. So if you fool me, we can fool everybody.
I think Josh had some questions about some games, some CD games.
Oh yeah, like like in the 90s where like cartoons they for movies and stuff, it was an adult movie and they'd turn it into a kid's cartoon, And I remember playing I think it was the Ace Ventura games.
I did that.
Monty Python also, and I was like, there's a million click and play games. Like how is that putting that stuff together?
It was amazing because that was my first gig after I left Saban, when I jumped without a safety net and didn't know if I would find any work. And then 2 weeks later, I get called to this company called Seventh Level, and it's headed by two guys, Bob Ezrin, who had produced like Pink Floyd and Alice Cooper. I mean, he did the Wall album. Yeah. And so he's like the main guy. And then Scotty Page, who was a sax player who played with Pink Floyd and everybody in town. But so Bob Ezrin just said the initial thing was a game for something called Tamagotchi, like an egg that kids were, I don't even know what the hell it was now. But so I scored that and I said, any notes? And he goes, nope, love it. We're moving on. Now we're going to do Ace Ventura. I mean, he was just a dream to work for because he was a music guy. My only problem was I had a limited amount of voices in MIDI, so I had to set up this PC-like general MIDI configuration, and everything had to be written with those sounds in general MIDI.
Oh, wow.
I was occasionally able to put in songs that ate up, they could put on the actual DVD or CD-ROM, whatever it was then. Mm-hmm. But it was so restricted on the amount of space I had to score stuff. But it was a blast, especially the Monty Python stuff, because I worked with Eric Idle and John Cleese for a few days, and it was just they were just crazy hysterical.
Nice.
That's awesome. Wait, you've touched points on like almost every like 90s like staple, because even like so we call them Tamagotchis.
Right.
That's like one of the most nostalgic like 90s things. It's funny because
a resurgence.
One of our friends, girlfriends, does the marketing for that companies in the U.S. and they brought that toy back for like at the end of last year.
Oh, good.
Yeah, my kid actually just asked for one.
Oh, really? I wish I would have known because I had some and I just sold them. But it was funny because we met up with those guys at this meetup, and they gave us some because they're like color screens now with Bluetooth and all this crazy stuff. I was like, oh man, I remember Tamagotchis. And they're like, okay, so I know this is going to be nitpicky, but when we signed the contract with them, they were like, it's Tamagotchi. We're like, have we been pronouncing it wrong for 30 years?
Yeah.
Because even the commercials
like
back then were like, even the commercials back in the 90s were like, Tamagotchis. And like apparently that annoyed the Japanese for like decades. And so when they signed this like new contract, they're like, Tamagotchi.
Or we don't sign.
Yeah. Well, no, they said that the how it worked was like they were in the room. They're like, we're so glad to be working with Tamagotchi, and the Japanese guy shook his hands like Tamagotchi. Like, okay.
Dang. And then he pulled a samurai sword out.
Very sorry. Yeah, exactly. I have to cut your head off. Well, that's interesting that's back. Yeah, but it's total dumb luck that I flew around all that stuff, and it's just been luck.
Luck and your reputation.
Yeah, luck that's the thing. You just have to be nice. I've always just been calm and kind, though, no matter what the situation. So it can always be dealt with. Again, how I grew up and what I went through, and especially in my 20s, just having work, even if it was a nightmare, was still better than. I always remember what I've been through. Just like all of us are going to remember this time to some degree. I know we're going to go back to crowded freeways and pollution and consumerism and all that stuff. But somewhere in the back of everybody's mind over 20 that's gone through this, something will change. And they will never forget this time.
Dude, I wish I had some sort of political. But go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
You go ahead.
I mean, like people who went through the Depression, they all had something, or went through the Cuban Missile Crisis and whatnot. But even at that time, it was even worse than this. But right now, every single day we wake up, we do not know if we'll be alive in 5 days. Yeah. And that is just profound.
Yeah, I had mentioned to a friend, I was like, I hope when this is all over, like that we just collect. I wish I had some sort of political lobbying capabilities. I just want to like lobby for like the world to be like, hey, can we just do this without the pandemic every year, like for a month?
I agree.
Like everybody just pause and we just be like, okay, everybody take a deep breath, take a little holiday. We're not going to worry about buying anything
except for whiskey,
and then just stay home. Yeah, just stay home, whiskey. And then we'll come back to this. But we all get to breathe for a month.
Yeah, it's been an incredible experience for a lot of people that I'm very close to. They're really figuring out. They were too busy running around, too busy buying, too busy visiting, whatever, and it's really slowed them down. And it's going to be remarkable to see what comes out of this. I think there'll be a lot of positive stuff, even though it may not be so obvious on the surface.
Yeah, totally.
And look at LA right now. My God, the skies are gorgeous. There's no pollution. The trees are expanding. I mean, they're expanding. They're growing like crazy. Yeah. There's wildlife in the streets. I have a freaking rabbit living in my backyard.
I forget.
I don't even know how he got there. He.
I forget which index it was, but I just read that with one of these air quality indexes, LA is the highest rated now for the first time since 1980. And stuff is like, wow. So if everybody just stops driving for 3 weeks, then we can actually have the clearest air in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's obviously not all Teslas.
Yeah.
Although it seems like it is, but it's not. It's just, it's been weird. And the weather is weird, and we're getting lots of rain, and then we get sun. It's pretty weird.
Yeah, it's like
it's great.
But the weather knows that there's a pandemic too, because like as soon as that first week that the mayor put everybody kind of on the light lockdown, like it just started gray skies and like started raining. I'm like, does it know the apocalypse is happening?
Yeah, it's like another blessing. I know a lot of you people out there hate California, but we got bad weather and rain as soon as this started, and we don't go out in the rain anyways because it'll hurt our plastic surgery. So,
we'll melt.
We'll melt. Oh my God, a raindrop.
Go through 30
and
earthquakes,
we can't drive in it.
No, seriously, you definitely can't drive in it.
And did you see there's for whatever there's less earthquakes all of a sudden worldwide?
No.
I mean, this is weird. Yeah, you can Google it. There's been a big reduction in tectonic movement ever since everybody started isolating or self-isolating.
That's so weird.
Man.
And they can't even begin to understand why.
Right, that's a question for that Neil deGrasse guy.
Tyson.
Yeah.
He's like, y'all stop moving. The world stopped vibrating.
The world stopped moving.
Exactly. For once, you're not fucking it all up with your Range Rovers.
With your Range Rovers.
The aliens finally reset the simulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really weird time. So look, in another week, when you guys play this, everybody's still going to be in isolation. So I hope you're all safe. I hope your family and your loved ones are safe. And this is just something we all have to go through together. So at least the world isn't passing us by. We're not stuck at home while everybody else is out having fun. We're all equally miserable and terrified we're going to run out of toilet paper.
That was kind of why I brought up some other friends. I know it sucks for a lot of people who are out of work or like the economy's crashing and stuff, but like this is a very rare circumstance where it's almost the entire world at once or within a few months of each other. And so it's just like a little bit different now to like kind of stay put, because like my parents are Korean and had to live through like the horrors of the Korean War and stuff. And so like when this happened, like, Mom, how you doing? She was freaking out for a little bit, but she was like, then I remembered that I survived the Korean War, And so she already had her doomsday garden going for like since Y2K. So she's like, I have fresh vegetables.
See?
I'm like, oh
yeah. and that's, you had just touched on that, Ron, about generations living through these type of things. and living with those experiences on moving forward and everything.
Yeah, people carry these experiences with them to the next Power Rangers theme, or
Yeah, exactly.
it'd be a really dark, hot.
I'm sure
in Cleveland.
Hasbro is going to say, "I want something more emotional now for this."
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it, but do you have any connection with the Hasbro version of the Power Rangers since they acquired them a couple years ago?
No, absolutely have not heard a thing, and it's not something I'm going to go after with them. If they call, I'm in. If they don't, I'm not. And I know nothing about what's going on there.
I have one lead that, if it works, maybe this will be our sign. But like, we have a friend that I don't want to call him out here, but like, we have a friend that like is pretty high up in like the music side of Hasbro, and if he has any say in it, that might kind of be a cool. But if it doesn't, then like you said, it wasn't part of like the flow of like where things are supposed to go.
Exactly. That's the other thing, and that's really not just reasoning with things. It's not a coping mechanism. When something doesn't happen, for me, it turns out to have been a blessing in the long term. Even if initially I'm like, "Oh my God, this is horrible," but it ends up working out to be a blessing. So I just roll with it.
There was this actually this week, this contract that came up for something for me that was like, I was like 70% don't want to do it, right? But then like, well, a gig's a gig right now, you know? And so they set up like this interview, like this remote interview, and they're like, pick a day, I have time. And the day and time they picked, the only one that they were available to interview me for it, was the only day I was helping another friend with like a YouTube video, and it was like 1 24-hour time period I would be unavailable. And I was like, you know what? That's my sign. I didn't want to do this, and they picked the one day in the past month and foreseeable future that I'll ever be busy.
Right.
and that's a testament to what you had said before about RKVC and the way we kind of take in stuff. We don't just like take in everything. We take in stuff we want, and we wait for things to come to us instead of hound things down. So this makes sense. You like waited, or just happened to like lay itself out like that. You know what I mean?
I was talking to our friend, Marvelous She, who asked a question earlier, and I over text for another conversation, and she was like, I think there's a sign. I'm like, dude, like everything right now is a sign. Like I think everybody's being quiet, and just kind of like paying attention,
That's another good thing, Ron. Question to you, actually. The kind of listening to the universe and in your whole span of doing all the cues and scores and theme songs, stuff like that. Was there a thing that you just kind of let go through, your body, or like, I'm not to be like too frou-frou, but listening to the universe and letting things come through? Could you speak on that a little?
Yeah, it's always been, that's one great thing I've been tapped into forever. And believe me, I'm not buying self-help books or anything. It's just something I noticed. It's I've always really followed my gut on stuff in my career and my personal life, and even I'll bring you a great example, the most recent. So it's September 2018, and I'm mountain biking like nuts, like 90 miles a week. I'm out every day. And this one day I'm out September 4th, 2018. I'm at the top of a hill, and I look at it, and my gut says, don't do it. And my brain says, we have time, let's do it. And I did it, and I decimated my right elbow. So my arm will never be straight. It doesn't hurt or anything. It's really healing. It'll still be another 2 years.
You got any metal in there?
No, they took it back out because the specialist didn't like what the guy did with the metal.
Good.
But the thing is, my hand functions fine, my life's fine,
good.
but my arm will always be at a slight, like I'm losing about 5% of the extension.
Oh, man.
And when I reach for something, so I've lost about 2-3 inches. That's a fine example of when I didn't follow it. But in most of my life, people I've met, projects, I've just gone, you get that gut instinct, and as much as I've wanted it or thought it would be good for me, I've learned to walk away. And the times I didn't, it has just stressed me out and put another wrinkle on my face.
Interesting. What a great answer. Thank you.
Luke,
but I think everybody has that in them. You just have to be honest with yourself
And that's really
Everybody's
tough
got
to
it.
do.
You just really have to be honest. It's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, it's not easy.
I ask friends that all the time. They're like, "Okay, cool, I'll remember to do that." I'm like, look me in the eye. Are you gonna remember?
No.
Like, are you gonna do it?
No.
Because if you're not, that's fine. I just need to know right now. Because you know right now
Yeah.
if you're gonna do it or not.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm gonna find out later if you are. So you just need to tell me right now, and I'll be okay with it.
Like, no, dude, I'm not going to do it. Look, I got to go. I've got a meeting tomorrow. I'll talk to you later. And they're looking at their watch or at their phone, and you're like, they're going to do it.
Yeah. It's funny you
And then they
mentioned
come
that
back
date.
later and they go, you're right. What do you think about this thing? You're like, don't do it. Don't do it. You're right. I'm not going to do it. Dude, I did that one too, and it didn't work out. I have another thing. And some people, it's a pattern. And I think they do that to protect themselves from failure. Even though they fail, they don't want to go through whatever process to just follow their gut and find some success. Because once you have some success, most people are scared to death of failing or disappearing after that.
Right.
Instead of just saying, I'm lucky. I've had some
Yeah.
great luck and things went well. Whatever happens, happens.
We have some friends specifically. I'm going to try my best to leave out enough details so people listening can't pinpoint who they are. But there was a specific situation where they wanted a very specific gig in LA, and it was just like a pie in the sky. Like, Ron, a lot of crews in LA, they're pretty locked in unless it's something new. Like you work with a crew, and if they
Right.
work, you don't really change much. And this one specific job opening for what this person wanted, opened up, and I happened to know someone who was able to get the interview. So I was like, dude, I can get you the interview right now for that gig you wanted, It's like that we said in a million years would never open up. It just opened up. And I happen to know the roommate of the person that's going to hire for it. And they were like, oh yeah, I don't know if there'll be time. It's like, this is all you've been talking about for a year. And I just tell okay,
It's
that
a
told
fear that they'll fail at something big.
me. And
Their balls
You're
just
talking
shrivel
about
up.
Tom Hanks, right? It's got to be Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Loser. What
But-
a chicken loser.
You're just wild. But when you mentioned September 4th, 2018, I remember that date specifically too, mainly because that same day, Vince and I were releasing one of our first new songs in a couple of years. We had a big release party in Hollywood, and it went really well. And
Yeah.
in the middle of that, Scott from NerdSync called us and was like, I'm releasing the X-Men video today. We're like, cool. We're kind of busy because we're in the middle of a bunch of sound checks and stuff. But I'll hit up Ron as soon as I get a free
Wow.
moment. And we were in a break between sound check and hitting the stage. And I look at my phone. I'm like, I'm going to text you. And then I just saw your thing about being in an accident. I'm like, bad time.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll give it a few days.
And then the pictures,
Well,
everything.
that probably would have been a good time to call my friends who came by, which I don't remember them coming by, said, dude, you were fucked up. Because they had, and I thought that I was completely on my game the whole time, but I guess swapping every other hour between morphine and Percocet, apparently I wasn't on my game. But I was happy.
Then you got
we
your
would have
mighty.
talked and
That's
Go
funny.
ahead.
I was gonna say that's when you got your mighty morphine Power Rangers.
oh yeah, it was the first time. I'm like, yeah, this is morphine. Yeah, yeah. It was a
Morphine
weird thing
time.
because they couldn't do surgery on me that night because they had to order parts from a hospital in LA, and they said they'll be here in the morning.
What are you, like a used
So
car?
they said just enjoy it. I know it's exactly what I felt. I felt like a
AutoZone.
brake pad.
we don't have parts for this year, so you got to wait a day.
Hey, some kid had a brake fall out of their car last night.
Yeah, we gotta get it cleaned up. Currently, it's on set, and then for a pilot, but we can get it by the morning and stick it in your arm.
Man, I wish in my head I'm gonna believe that one of the nurses went to go hook you up, and it was like, "Go, mighty morphine Power Rangers! It's morphine time." And then hooked you up, and you were just passed out or something. Was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I want to believe that one of the nurses was like,
I don't think they knew because that didn't happen. But I really should have done that. I should have
just
said,
look
by
up.
the way, I'm very famous for a kids theme, and
Nerds love
hi.
me.
"It's morphine time." Hey, it's morphine time.
Oh my gosh. That didn't even occur to me. That would have been hysterical. But I probably would have got the look like, dude, go away.
Yeah, it's like, let's up his dose.
Have your surgery and go home.
Yeah, it's one of two things. You're either annoying them or you're making their day because it's so hilarious.
Yeah, I was just trying to make them laugh and trying to keep everything light. The funniest thing was I was dehydrated. They wouldn't let me have water because they thought I might go in for surgery, yet they wanted me to pee, which turned out it was going to be for a drug test because they couldn't figure out somebody like me could, or anybody could push a 51-pound bike out on their hip for an hour and a half to find help. And I said, well, I did it because I'm in shape, and the fucking thing cost me $5,000, and I'm cheap. I'm inherently cheap, and there's no way I'm leaving this bike in the bushes for somebody to steal.
Yeah.
And then, so that was kind of, for the first couple hours, that was the joke. You need to pee. I'm like, I need some water. I don't have anything in me.
Yeah.
I don't.
It's speed dust, man.
You know, I don't know how to explain this to you. So finally they gave me water, and I filled that thing to the very brim and put the lid on like they do it like a Diet Coke at McDonald's, where they put the lid on and some shoots out of the top.
Thank you for that
I wanted to
visualization.
get back at them.
You're like, here.
Thanks. Well, yeah. Here's my pee.
Like a Diet Coke. That's great.
It was very funny.
Oh, man. What balls? What balls to just
Thank you.
Throw yourself off the side of a mountain.
Yeah, I haven't hiked back there yet because it's 7.5 miles from where you can park, and I don't know. I don't know if I want to see it. I may see it and get all shaky like
PTSD.
Your friend Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Going for the audition he didn't go for.
Man, if there's anything that's metal, it's that.
I mean,
And not the metal in your arm.
yeah, carrying a bike.
Like hardcore.
Yeah, so
rock
initially
out.
they put in 2 plates and 20 screws.
Oof.
And then I went to a specialist at Cedars, and he said, I'm going to pull that out, and I'm going to move your nerve back to where it should be, and I'm going to go in and clean this, and I'm going to, do what I do. And
Cedar cyanide.
And then the third, cyanide. And then after that, a few weeks after that surgery, went, well, the next thing is I put you to sleep and just twist your arm and see if I can get it straight. So apparently for 45 minutes, he just cranks up and back trying to open up the rebuilt elbow joint.
Oh, Jesus.
And that didn't hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then none of this ever hurt. And then they put me in a cast after that and said, okay, drive home. So I'm on like Percocet. I have a brand new green cast. It's a solid cast with no space to move. And then the arms started to swell up. And those were the only 7 days where I just went, this is really not fun.
Oh my gosh, man. I'm
And
sorry.
I was trying to find ways to cut it off.
Oh, wow.
The pressure alone.
But they make it extra thick. Yeah, when they put it on, they're like one person's pulling on my wrist, another's holding on the shoulder, and the third one's putting the cast on. It's like laughable. It was so funny. It just felt primitive.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Man.
But
insane.
it's my fault, and that's when I didn't follow my gut. So the lesson of that 20 minutes of talking is follow your gut.
I didn't know that story. That's incredible.
Man. Yeah.
It's just when you're like open, you're listening, even if you're not like, religious or like believe in any of that stuff, like just like listening, being aware, of like the messages around you,
I think, 90% of it is
Right.
is being present in the situation you're in. Because if you're not, it's going to, those chances will pass by you so quickly. And it may be you'll never get that chance again. May be that.
Yeah. Well, there was this like
Exactly.
scene. There was a scene in it was one of the Night at the Museum movies, and it's my favorite like gag is the like all the statues come to life, and
Right.
so Ben Stiller like there's somebody like steals a bus or something, and they like take off, and Ben Stiller's like, oh my God, like how are we ever gonna catch him? And then not Pocahontas, what's Pocahontas? I don't know.
Sacagawea.
Sacagawea.
There you
Sacagawea, like it's like she puts her hand to the ground and then she points and she's like, they drove, headed west, and then crashed the van. And then Ben Stiller's like, how did you figure that out? And they look up, and 10 feet in front of them where no one was looking up, the van had crashed like 10 feet away from the building. And she wasn't necessarily mystical. She was just paying attention.
Yeah.
I feel like there's like that in big things and little things. And I don't mean to pick on Vince. This is just a really good example.
Yeah.
We were at in LA, Fig at 7th. It's a shopping center in the middle of downtown LA. And we parked to the parking garage, and I was like, okay, we're gonna go this way. And then Vince was like, no, this is how we go. I'm like, okay. And then we got lost. But then like when we came back, he's like, let's do it my way. He's like, how'd you know? I was like, there's a big arrow on this wall that says move this way, and it's like 7 feet tall. And then every time you turn, there's another arrow that's a little bit bigger. And then on the ground, they have like little footsteps they've painted that say follow this to get inside. And I'm like, I don't feel like I had any intuition. I just looked at the sign.
Right. The literal sign.
Yeah, the arrow said go here.
And then I've had the reverse where I'd say, I think we should go this way. And the person I'm with goes, duh, there's a sign right there that says go this way. So it works both ways.
Yeah.
I have an innate
There's
sense
time
of
you're like,
direction.
I'm going with my gut, feeling. And you look like a complete moron.
It's like, cool, your gut's cool. I can read.
So I think the lesson is to
There's no
obviously,
lesson.
I know.
No kidding.
But
There's no lesson.
For sure, follow your gut. But sometimes your gut can be wrong. But if you didn't try, then you would have never known. And I think that's more important.
In some cases,
The only time I follow my gut 100% of the time is with food.
Hey.
I'll be eating something or I'll smell it and my gut will go like, dude, I'm going to fuck your world up tomorrow if you eat this. Can't you smell it? There's something wrong with this. They're trying. This is not. Don't eat this. And that I'll follow 100% of the time, even if I'm starving. I've had plenty of times I've taken a bite of something and I've spit it out in the napkin and said, you know what? I'm really not hungry. I'll just have.
You make better choices, as you get more experience with this food stuff, man.
Producer brought me a sandwich from like a one of those their favorite roadside sandwich place, and like I took a bite of it and it was like awful, and I like kind of pushed down like half of it, and I was like, real good. And like, why didn't you eat the full sandwich? Like, I'm saving it for later when they're gonna need to test it at the hospital.
Yeah, exactly. Pull their license. Oh, that's funny.
It's funny. That kind of actually is a really loose tie-in, but it reminds me of the amount of places I've seen you or your work pop up. So like about the eating expired food, there's a new favorite YouTube channel. One of my favorite YouTube channels I just discovered last year called Chad Tronic. And he does things like 90s nostalgia stuff. So he was making things out of easy bake ovens and stuff. But obviously all that stuff expired in the 90s and early 2000s. So he's eating it. And he's like, yep, shouldn't eat this. But he has a comic book series that you did the theme song for. What was it? I can't say the Teenage Fighting Food Dudes.
Oh, right. I remember. That was, that was just one of those things where I had time and he said, will you do this for me? And I did it. That's been quite a while. Well, I'm glad he's still doing stuff. Good for him.
Yeah, his channel is, I'm not sure what they're doing with the comic book series or anything, but I remember the video where he announced that it was happening. He made a big deal of it. He's like, and guys, you won't believe who we got to do the theme song. And then he said, I was like, oh, hey, look at that. And that's why I texted you. I was like, hey, I just saw you on this thing with the tomato. He's like a Ninja Turtle.
It was cute. Yeah, he sent the artwork. I remember that. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool looking.
You get the artwork, you're like, this is 10 times more notes than I had in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I don't know. Use the word go. It's called Mighty Morphin.
Yeah.
Have a good night. We're going home.
And then we were at, have you ever been to Frank & Sons? The, I don't know what you would call it. It's kind of like a
trade show or not such a trade
No.
show.
It's kind of like
meet.
Yeah, it's like a swap meet, but for like nostalgic and geeky things and stuff. They recently got a new building, but it's basically like the sales floor at Comic-Con, except like tolerable and a better selection.
You can move.
Yeah, and it's there like almost every, well, not now, but every other weekend, like when it's not like quarantine. And it's amazing. They just moved into an old Walmart, so they're bigger and like cleaner now. I mean, it wasn't like not clean before, but it was older, you know. But we were walking around there, and I forget, we were looking at like old PlayStation games, and then over the loudspeakers we just hear the Power Rangers
Vocals.
Redux version
Wow.
of Power Rangers. And I was
Oh,
like,
lovely.
well, how awesome is that? He just had it playing like off his phone into like the Bluetooth speakers in his like section of the store and stuff. I was like, that's awesome.
That would be so weird. I've only had a few times in my life, and it was with the band stuff where I'd be walking through a mall and I'd just go, wait, that's us. Wow. That's weird. But I don't think there's maybe been one time I've been driving. This was in the 90s and, sitting in whatever the hell I was, piece of crap car I still had, sitting at a light and, in the background I hear, well, that's not a good representation, but I would hear the Power Rangers theme coming through somebody's door.
Nice.
So that happened a few times, and that was very, very cool.
And I kept meaning to ask you,
But
and I
it
never
didn't
did.
happen enough.
Yeah. I kept meaning to ask you. I didn't know for sure, but the Power Rangers Redux album, is that the only way that fans could support you financially for the Power Rangers theme song?
Yeah, I mean, I don't care if they can stream it or do whatever. Yeah, that's the only thing that I see a bit off. But you know how streaming services are now, so I just did it to do it.
Yeah. But I guess if you're a fan out there and you want to hear like kind of like Ron, I think you said in our last interview when you had the luxury of time, like how you could do them, and then also like kind of support in a small way, because the way the deal worked out was it considered work for hire? It was kind of like you want salary to do stuff.
Work for hire, and I was either an independent contractor or salary at that time, or hourly. I was hourly, and it was just that was the deal then. But it's nothing to worry about because things, picked up substantially after that.
Yeah.
But if you want to just listen, it's just iTunes. Everybody's got it. SoundCloud, and I mean everywhere you stream. So you just say Power Rangers Redux or Redo, depending on their system.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the show notes of this podcast so you guys can check that out if you haven't heard them already, because that was back in 2011 or 12?
2012, I think.
Awesome.
And a lot of people wrote and said, why did you remaster this stuff, which was the greatest compliment. And I said, well, if you notice, it's the same tempo and it sounds the same, but, the guitar solos are different and, I just did it to do it, and I got hooked on it, and I figured, what the hell, I'll do this for fun.
That's awesome.
And see if anybody cares. And apparently a lot of people were waiting to have just recordings of the songs.
Yeah, because I don't think
those
previously
masters,
they were on.
They don't exist. I think I'm the only one on the planet that has the original, I converted in the WAV file. It has the original WAV files of some of those songs. Not all of them, but most of them.
That's great. And
yeah,
also kind of sucks.
I'm saving them for my kids so he can go to Pawn Stars with other stuff.
Here's a
The
hard
day
drive.
I die. You can go, my dad just died, and I have to sell this stuff.
Are they the splits, or is it just like the track
No
on the
splits.
show?
You know what? On something, somewhere. Wait a minute. Let me check. I have this cataloging system. Let me see if it may not be here. Power Rangers theme vocals. I bet it'll come up for Redux or Redo or Remake. No items found. Somewhere I thought I ran into just vocals only on the original theme and the playback, because we had everything was splits back then. And everything was delivered in mono, I think, originally.
Oh, wow.
No way.
Or I had to collapse it because majority of the televisions in America were still mono back then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure mine giant
That's
tube
a good-
one was mono.
Oh, yeah, they were. That'd be a great thing for you guys to figure out as a trivia question. Were the first seasons of Power Rangers in stereo or mono? How did Fox broadcast them?
You heard it here first.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look. See, I honestly don't remember. I mean, I remember being really into Power Rangers when I was a kid. My parent, it might have been one of the only toys that my parents actually had to do the whole Jingle All the Way thing for me. Like, for the most part, I feel like my mom told me I was pretty chill for the most part. My brother was another story, but he became a pastor, so it worked out. But like I was just like, oh yeah, whatever. But then the Power Rangers came out, and I was like, you need to get me the Black Ranger, or I'm not your child anymore.
Buy me toys now.
I'll kill the cat.
Yeah. But since then I haven't gone back to watch the episodes because I'm gonna guess that they don't age well, But who knows? I mean,
yeah, it's best to just think they were great.
Man.
But I did mention this in the video that we did together a couple of years ago, that in the remake they did with Elizabeth Banks, when the Megazord is like being assembled, they ignore all the scoring conventions they had like established earlier in the movie, and they just straight up play the original theme. And our theater was just like,
oh, it erupted,
stand up, like screaming. They're like, the whole movie sucked until this point.
There's just something about
it's an energy that just with the films they just couldn't get it straight. I really wish I'd been able to do that first film, whenever it was, 95, 96. That would have just rocked.
With Ivan Ooze.
I had everybody ready to go, but it just I didn't get the gig.
It was interesting to see how they decided to market that, because the one song I remember from the Power Rangers movie is that song by the girl duo Shampoo or something, and they had a song called I'm in Trouble.
I'm in trouble.
Yeah. And I remember, or I might have just been trouble, but I remember they made a huge deal out of it on TV. This is when we had to wait for things on TV. I remember it was like some TV show happened. They're like, stay tuned, because after the credits, you're gonna hear the world debut of the Power Rangers theme song. We're like, cool, Power Rangers. And then there was these two like British girls like, we're in trouble. I was like, I mean, it's a cool song, but what the hell is this?
Yeah. Well,
what happened to the guitars?
Saban was trying to start a label, and they were going to sign all sorts of people, and there you go. That's why in Sweet Valley High, the soundtrack, I think, has that too. When it didn't work for Power Rangers, I think they went, oh, now it's a Sweet Valley High song.
Oh my God, I didn't know
that. They
that.
probably pulled the same stuff.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's wild.
So great.
Do you guys have any more questions?
Yeah,
I
Josh.
think we've taken up of his time. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine. But yeah, I guess we've discussed everything. We can't say what he's been up to because everybody's locked at home.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess like that. I mean, I know for me and Vince, we don't have any kids, at least not that we're aware of, and they're not with us. But
there was that stint I did back in China.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the touring stories might reveal otherwise, but right now we've actually been able to catch up on like backlogged work. Like both
That's
like
great.
paid gigs, like unpaid gigs and stuff, and then I've gotten to play video games for the first time.
Some
like in 10
passion
years.
projects that we just never had time for. We're able to get to now,
and then somehow on top of all that, get a full night's sleep every night. I'm like, is this what balance feels like?
This is like the most guitar I've played in a while. So I'm
It's
usually
great.
just out.
I mean, it's going to, like I said, it's going to be fascinating to see how everybody comes out of this. I think there's going to be, couples who get closer, and of course those that it's freaking over after this amount of time together. And and people may go, you know what? I never painted, and I did it during the pandemic, and I really like it. Now I'm going to take classes, and
Yeah.
it seems like maybe people's creativity may get expanded a bit instead of
I think you're right.
constantly needing to just watch TV.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Plus, people are running out of things to watch, so they're going to need to start exercising some new hobbies here.
Yeah, they'll figure it out. It'll be fascinating.
Well,
It really will be.
I don't know how it's been for you guys, but because everybody has a little bit different experiences. Like Josh has kids, Ron, you have your son with you, and like for me, like I've ever since college, I've been wanting to be in the music business so bad, and I love songwriting. That I fill every waking moment with it, because there's so much other bullshit that I'm forced to do that's not music. So every free second is moving towards that music thing. But now with this whole world on lockdown and pausing for a second, I'm able to do all the music things I want to during the day, and then don't feel guilty about pursuing other interests.
Yeah.
Good.
Like yesterday, I figured out how to fix the Joy-Cons on my Nintendo Switch, and I made a YouTube video about it today. And I'm like, I like doing that, and I don't feel guilty about doing that, because earlier today I did all this music shit, and it's so I feel like a person, You know, and it's like you said,
It's
like how
almost
it's
like we're
changing,
finally getting to live. It's weird.
right? It's like you said
is
earlier.
really
It's like how
interesting.
this is going to change everybody forever. But I know at the personal level, like for me, like I'm like, this is how I would feel like if I wasn't constrained by all like the overabundance of pressures, you know, from other directions, you know, because even though
Right.
the last like 5 or 6 years, me and Vince have been doing music full time, it's been like, you know, scrounging for work and stuff. But before then, when we were working day jobs, it was like, well, now we only have 4 hours after work, you know, or
Hardly
something.
did music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so like it was just like just do that. But now it's like, okay, I can work on music, and then now I'm like, okay, well, I'm done with that, and I'm done with some YouTube stuff, and now I can play Animal Crossing.
Just the
Yeah,
having that perspective of like for all of us, really, what we do is we're creating these assets, and if you look at it that way, it makes it a lot easier to want to make more and want to continue to grow with doing so. And I think
yeah.
I think that's a great thing.
It's like being, in some ways, it's like being very young again when you
Yeah.
lived with your parents, because
Yeah.
you just get to your days. It's like summer vacation in a way. You're like, I'll go do this today.
Right.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, our
And
friend
I know
Megan,
a lot of people are still, you know, they're suffering and they're scared to death they're going to lose their place to live. So I'm not making light of this, but it's a weird time.
There's
It's-
opportunities.
Might be good.
Yeah, I was gonna say we pointed this out in our live streams before that, like, you know, we're privileged to be in a position where like we're not stuck in all those like horrible situations, you know, like we're not like deathly ill, we're not gonna like lose, you know, a house or something.
Yeah, it can't be kicked out or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So like we're, you know, we feel very like privileged in that way, but also very thankful for it and appreciate everybody out there. It's like doing delivery, medical work, and all that
All
stuff.
you first responders, hell yeah.
Oh,
But
unbelievable.
our friend Megan had pointed out, she was like, because I asked her, I was like, oh, how you doing? You know, and she was like, it feels like a sleepover that won't end.
There you go. That's pretty darn accurate.
And then my niece, who's just turned 6, I FaceTimed her on her birthday, and her family are quarantined because my brother was recently in Israel with my dad. And so they quarantined for like 2 weeks to make sure everything was cool. And it was her birthday. I was FaceTiming her. I was like, how you doing, Grace? She's like, I'm fine. I think this is a sleepover. I don't know. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is just carrying
Aw.
over.
Man, yeah.
That's funny. I know every dog is happy right now because their owners
yeah.
are home all day.
Oh, yeah.
My
All the
dog's
dogs are
been
happy.
thrilled. She's like, this is wild. Why didn't we do this earlier? Before I had congestive heart failure, we could have had more fun. She's old, very old.
That's the thing is I want a pet, but I feel before I had felt bad because, you know, we're out all the time, you know, and also Los Angeles, if you're not apart with like a lot of places for an animal to go, I feel it's
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of like not great for an animal to like live in a concrete jungle, you know?
Big dogs, this is not the place.
Exactly.
And so like I was like, oh, there's never time, and then now it's like, should he get a cat or something like?
Little dogs thrive in
You know?
small
No,
places.
don't do that. Don't get a cat. Don't get a cat.
Well,
You
also,
know, here's what you should do. Have somebody in the family shit in the backyard 3 or 4 times a day, and then you go out and clean it up all day, and you pretend that it's your new little cat or your new dog.
There you go.
If you're getting a cat, take a knife and destroy some of your furniture,
yeah, there you go.
just like with their claws, and then start peeing
In
on
random places.
the rugs.
My comic books.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pee on your comic books and then think about what you would name the cat.
Oh,
Then just get a Tamagotchi.
No, you should
Yeah.
get a cat. That was my way. You should get a cat.
Well, no, the short version of the story is like we can't. Where we live, it's easy for an animal to escape and get eaten by a mountain lion. So
Well,
Or a
then you
coyote.
should definitely get a cat.
easy peasy.
I had cats my entire life, literally until the breakup with my ex, and it's weird not having a cat. I've had a cat my entire life up until last September, and then we found a home for him because he peed on everything. But it was just, it's weird not having a cat. But I feel like I've had enough cats. I've probably had 30 cats. That's enough.
Yeah. A lot of cats. I've had a lot of cats as well. I've had 4 Sylvesters. And yes, I'm that sick person that kept finding the same colored cat and naming him Sylvester over and over again.
I saw a friend
I
post
think
something
that's
like
funny.
Snowball 6.
Yeah, Snowball 6. Like
I saw a friend. I don't know if it was like their photo or a photo of their friends or something. They're like, my cat ran away, and then came back one day, and we were happy. And then the next day he came back again. So now I have 2 of them. So I guess the first cat that came back wasn't him. It was just one that looked exactly like him. And then he just took him. They just took him in because they assumed it was their cat. And then the real one came back the next day.
Oh my God.
That's hilarious.
That is hysterical.
These 2 black cats with like the yellow, the white bellies
belly, yeah.
that just like look up and they're like, oh yeah, I can see that.
You just sold the idea for an entire episode of a sitcom. That would be hysterical. That is really brilliant. That's very brilliant.
I'm excited to see what kind of writing, both music writing and like TV and film writing, are going to come out of all this. You know, because it kind of set the new bar for what's possible in the world.
Because things have been so dark, so incredibly dark, and you know, Netflix too. They're going to look and say, "Hey, people are streaming lighter stuff," or maybe they're not. But they're going to look at what happens through this whole thing, and they're going to judge every pitch that they get for the next couple years off of that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's why
I wouldn't be surprised if things lighten up slightly.
I think that's why Tiger King did so well, or is doing so well, because there is that whole like murder mystery thing happening, but the whole cast of people is they're so fucking ridiculous that you're laughing but also feeling good about your decisions. You know, because you're like, well, I'm not them, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like this circus, like train wreck that you're watching. It's lighthearted, but it's also like, I don't know. It's the first time in a very long time I felt like almost the entire world has been on the same page about one show.
It seems to be, doesn't it?
Instead of this, like,
I guess I got to start watching it tonight. I got to pull up an episode tonight and
watch the first episode.
I'm out of the loop.
It's ridiculous.
If you watch the first episode, you'll know in the first episode if it's going to be for you or not. And if it's not for you, just read the memes afterwards.
You got to, gotta at least get to the second episode.
There you go.
I'll give it a few.
Whatever somebody tells you it is, it's also 20 other things. Like if they're like, oh, it's
everybody's just given a little crumb because it's obviously very different to everybody who watches it. So I'm sure whoever came up with it is just thrilled. I mean, it's huge.
Mm. Yeah, it's like, and then like it's already crazy, and then you get to like the somewhere in the middle, like the 4th or 5th episode, and you already thought it was going like off the rails, and it just goes from 0 to 90 in that middle episode.
Wow,
you're like, what is going on?
Wow.
Like, and yeah, when somebody pitched it to me, they're like, oh, it's like a true crime story. I'm like, well, I'm not really into that stuff. It's like, but it's also about a gay redneck. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's like
a polygamous
gay Joe
gay redneck.
Yeah, and he's a polygamist, but his husband's he has 2 husbands that aren't gay, and it's like what? And he owns tigers, and like somehow the tiger like breeding is the least interesting thing of the whole show.
There's
see, that's the thing. When I
everything.
saw the initial ad thing on Netflix, I'm like, it's a guy with a mullet that raises tigers. What do I care about this? How can this be number one this week? Mm-hmm. And then so they didn't misrepresent it, but maybe a shot without the mullet.
Yeah. Well, also, I can't wait for you to see the music in this, man, because they transition everything that they don't know how to transition to with one of his music videos.
Perfect.
And it is gold. Like it's I don't know. You just have to experience it, because I can try to describe it, but it's just one of those things where you're like, it's happening and you're like, someone wrote a song about, he paid someone to write a song. He lip synced to something he paid for. What? It just keeps going like more and more layers. And I'm like, I need to score one of these shows or something, or write some of these tiger songs.
Yeah.
You're like,
that's what happens. It's the mullet. The mullet pulls on the back of the brain, and then you hire people. It's got to be that. It's got to be that.
I'll tell you what, though, the stupidity has got me rolling on every episode. So
okay,
I'm sure you'll enjoy that.
I'm gonna hop into it. Then I gotta watch it. I really, really will. I've got to.
it's wild, but yeah, I'm maybe it's time to start like rewatching some of the Power Rangers. Or no, I guess we all agreed it's better to remember.
No,
it well.
yeah, no, don't
Okay.
don't do that.
But cool. Well, thanks.
It is trippy.
What's that?
No, go. No, I'd watched one of the old ones a few years ago. I pulled it up on iTunes and I went, "This is like really strange," but I mean, it really was interesting. But I wasn't a fan of it. I was working on it, so I never sat and watched a whole episode. So it was pretty interesting to do.
I was actually buying a used car probably like 2 years ago or something like that, and the guy's like, losing his teeth or whatever, and I'm like, and he looks at me and he's like, "Do you know who I am?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, "I was on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers." And I'm like, "No." Oh. And it turns out he was like, there was an episode where they had kind of shrunk all the kids until where they were like little kids, and he was one of the little kids.
Oh
wow!
But the
Did he
whole
have
time he was all
teeth
like,
then?
I was apparently yes. He was like Bulk and Skull. He was the Skull kid, I think, and he was just a little kid, but like he kept telling us like he was one of the main characters, and you work at a used car store now.
So that joke about what you should have done while you were high on morphine, he actually did sober in real life.
Nice.
Yeah. Say, so what did you do with that $65?
I opened up this car lot.
Exactly.
Oh, that's sad, but if that was his moment, that's nice.
Yeah.
True that.
Cool. Well, thanks.
All right,
for joining
guys.
us,
Well,
Ron,
it's been
telling us stories
wonderful
about Power
chatting
Rangers.
with you.
Yeah, man, it's
Oh,
good to
that's
catch up. We'll
okay.
have to hang out too, like outside of like the podcast stuff.
You mean like in person, like breathing close to each other? No.
No. Like until the quarantine's over, like just remotely. But then, yeah, definitely afterwards, we should get a drink or something.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes. Yeah, well, yes, we'll start with one drink and then we'll move on from there.
Dude, me, it's always it always escalates from like, I'm not going to drink tonight, just one. 15 later.
Yeah.
It begins.
Yeah. I can get through the next day with this headache. I understand that feeling. Don't get the wrong idea. I'm not like an alcoholic. It's just with this, I'm like, oh, what the hell? I'll have a little bourbon at home.
Yeah. Ron, before we go, is there anything that you'd like to like shout out or promote or anything? I know you just worked on a video game and the Power Rangers.
Yeah, that's going to
Redux,
come out next year, and it's either going to be called The Nothing or Nothing Matters or Nothing, but the graphics on the thing are just off the charts. So it'll be an RPG game, and
Nice.
it'll be out sometime next year. And of course, this has delayed everything even more so because even though most of the crew works at home, apparently, it's just different for whatever reason. Everybody's head is up in the air right now. So
Yeah.
whatever it comes out, it comes out. And then that's really it. Working on a couple of those crime detective reality shows you don't like.
Tiger King 2.
Tiger King 2. Oh, that'd be fun. Well, everybody
cool.
out there, I just want to say stay safe and just accept this loneliness if you're lonely, and it'll pass just like everything else, and life will get back to normal, and hopefully everybody will be a little kinder to each other after this.
Amen.
That's a good message to end on.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, Rod, Vince, Josh, and Ron,
Hey.
and three of us will be back next week. And so I'll talk to you then. Hopefully you enjoy this week of Power Rangers content. We have the video we were supposed to put out 2 years ago. We have a video where Ron reacted to seeing covers on YouTube of the Power Rangers theme song, and then the full interview in this. So it's a lot of content this week.
That's right.
But we'll see you next time.